Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of my Clone Wars analysis series. In today's video we'll be examining Rising Malevolence, Season 1, Episode 2. The goal of this series is to unpack the Clone Wars animated show and look closely at its themes, characters, and politics. As always, there will be spoilers as we are covering the entire episode and series. That said, let's jump into it. Rising Malevolence is the start of a 3-episode long arc surrounding a separatist superweapon, a deadly dreadnought starship called the Malevolence. It has an ion cannon capable of disabling the power to enemy ships, making them unable to flee, defend, or attack, and this weapon has destroyed many ships. It is a great threat, and as the arc starts out, it remains unknown. The quote for the episode is, "Belief is not a matter of choice, but conviction," and conviction in this context relates to assurance, certainty, and confidence in one's feelings. Belief is the core theme and will be explored in 2 distinct but similar ways, one through the character of Plo Koon, and the other through Ahsoka Tano. The episode quickly jumps into action with the Malevolence destroying Plo Koon's fleet, but the main theme of belief and certainty is being built up in the background. When Anakin reports to the Council about the loss of contact and Plo Koon likely being dead, there is initially no dialogue spoken by Ahsoka in the first scene, but the glances they share and the camera angles around Ahsoka indicate that she doesn't agree and that she believes otherwise. Belief can be outspoken, or it can be personal and internalized. She does eventually say something, and that is that just because that there weren't survivors before, doesn't mean that there won't be any survivors this time. She brings forth an optimism and goes against the presented odds, and odds are frequently presented as a concept in Star Wars, such as C-3PO telling Han the odds in Empire Strikes Back, or even recently, in this very series in the prior episode, Ambush, where Yoda and his 3 men are attacked by a whole army of droids. Ahsoka's speaking up is considered bold and immature by the Council, but it is important to note that it is Palpatine who is the first to criticize her personality. Obi-Wan compares Ahsoka to Anakin, as Anakin is also bold and has a history of immaturity and unorthodox ways in the view of the Jedi Council. But it is also a history of strong opinions. Ahsoka was simply speaking her mind, her beliefs, which Anakin also does, and what Jedi protocol seems to be suppressing. Outside of the Clone Wars movie, this is the first glimpses into Anakin's role as a teacher for Ahsoka. He's still not great at it, but he's trying. He preaches Jedi protocol to her, and it is the objective viewpoint. This perception is being pitted against the emotional viewpoint, which is belief. This will be a prevalent dichotomy throughout the episode and connects to the prior one, Ambush, where objective methods of war were compared to less objective ways of war. This episode's objective versus emotional focus is on the ambiguity of loss. Plo Koon and his men are in an escape pod and will either die there naturally by not being found, or will be killed by the droid pod hunters looking for survivors. His soldiers express doubts about being found. Plo Koon says, "I don't believe in chance, Commander. I know if we work together, we will stay alive and someone will find us." It is critical to note the usage of belief by Master Plo Koon, as it is the episode's focal point and most notable word. Plo's expressing an absolute certainty in his voice. It isn't an arrogance, but it is the deep-rooted assurance in a positive outcome. It is the conviction that the opening quote focuses on. Plo Koon's statement about not believing in chance is very similar to Obi-Wan's statement about not believing in luck from A New Hope. If believing requires conviction, then not believing in something requires the same assurance but in the opposite direction. The clones talk about how strategically it wouldn't make any sense for someone to come save them, and how strategically it makes more sense for the Republic to try and find the weapon. This is the objective worldview of war, where it comes to maximizing gains and minimizing losses. However, Plo Koon says that he values each of their individual lives more so than catching the weapon, which speaks to the emotional worldview presented in the prior episode by Yoda. Plo Koon is being characterized as a thoughtful and wise Jedi. Naturally, Anakin goes against the Council and goes looking for survivors, to Ahsoka's surprise, as that is what got her in trouble for asking to do so. It brings up Jedi protocol again, and how Anakin subverts it routinely. Ahsoka spoke up and got shut down by the Council before taking action. Anakin's methodology is to take action and then tell the Council, so he can take the responsibility and blame after the fact, and not beforehand, which might prevent him from acting in the first place. Droids killing survivors of the attack and escape pods is immoral and relentless. It's to keep the secrecy of the superweapon, but it also exposes their lack of care for life, which contrasts to Plo Koon and his emphasis on the value of each individual life. The Jedi preserving each possible life that they can, while the Separatists are destroying each possible life. When Plo Koon and his men destroy the pod hunters and thus preserving their life, Dooku tells Grievous that this is something that they cannot allow. It is their objective to eliminate everyone. Ahsoka says she has to believe that Plo Koon is alive, even in the face of odds of him being dead. She has a connection to him, as he was the one who brought her to the Jedi Temple. She says the temple is where she belonged, and implies that she was lost in life because he found her. And to be found, you have to be lost. There are two main convictions in this episode. One is Ahsoka believing that Plo Koon is alive and can be saved, and the second conviction is Plo Koon believing that he and his men can be found. One of the clones says, "I never believed anyone would come looking for us." The opening quote tells us that belief is not a choice, which tells us that this clone didn't choose to have this pessimistic view of survival, but is truly certain that this is their destined outcome. Deep-rooted beliefs can be hard to change because they are beliefs after all. Palpatine requests Anakin to stop looking for survivors, and Anakin responds to this. Palpatine does this because the Council thinks Anakin's mission could risk other lives, but there's also Palpatine's personal agenda of keeping Anakin alive for him to become his apprentice later on, as he has been manipulating him all of his life. Even this early on in the war, Anakin listens to Palpatine's request more so than that of the Council, which we will see the result of ultimately in Revenge of the Sith. The main point of the episode follows. As they're about to leave, Ahsoka doesn't want to abandon Plo Koon. Anakin says, "I want to believe he is alive," and Ahsoka passionately says, "I know he is alive." Anakin wants to, but belief isn't something you can choose or want. It has to be whole and it has to be a concrete feeling. It has to be an all-encompassing certainty. We get a shot of Ahsoka using the Force or her intuition, or both, to sense Plo Koon out amongst the wreckage and know that he is alive. It parallels with Leia sensing Luke at the end of Empire Strikes Back, even though no one else on the Falcon does. The clones are certain no one is coming because they believe that they are expendable. It is a deep-rooted thought that they have, while Plo Koon maintains that their lives matter and are worth saving. It connects to Yoda's statements in Ambush about how the Force is in all living things, even the clones, and expands upon the main theme of belief. Anakin and Ahsoka end up saving Plo Koon and his men, and just barely get away from the Malevolence. From this very episode onward, there's a dynamic of tension between Dooku and General Grievous. Dooku is not pleased with Grievous' failure, and it's interesting that he places the blame on Grievous despite being present on the Malevolence himself. It is already foreshadowing episodes such as The Lair of Grievous, where the tension between the two are even higher. As this episode is the beginning of a 3-part arc, I will note some of the aspects of how it connects to the other episodes. The next episode focuses on ego, which is closely tied to confidence, and as we see by our definition of conviction, confidence is also tied to belief. It isn't a main theme of Malevolence, but can be supported throughout the arc that one's convictions and beliefs can either lead to a healthy confidence or to a state of arrogance. Part 3 revolves around plans and adapting to them. I wouldn't say this episode directly ties into that theme, however the arc as a whole has much characterization for Dooku, Grievous, Plo Koon, Anakin, and Ahsoka primarily.